Imagine a microscopic piece of plastic just sitting there in the dark. On its own, it is completely harmless.
Right, just a tiny nanoscale fragment.
Exactly. But through this wild 50-year chain reaction involving a planet's magnetic field and a humming water pipe, that single speck of synthetic polymer is about to render a life-saving pediatric vaccine completely useless.
It is a terrifying premise.
It really is. Welcome to our deep dive into the source material. Today we are unpacking an invisible catastrophe, going straight into a fascinating stack of internal mission logs from the Starfleet vessel USS Arawyn.
Yeah, and they're currently orbiting the colony of Kestrel Reach down on Lathira IV.
So our mission today, what we're trying to do here, is trace this terrifying butterfly effect.
Because this isn't just about how a starship crew fixes a broken pipe, you know? We're going to follow this microscopic contaminant backward from a failing medical clinic all the way down into the bedrock of the planet itself.
And man, along the way, the human and political drama happening just beneath the surface of this society is intense.
A society that basically thinks everything is totally fine.
Right, and you open these logs and the stakes on Kestrel Reach are just immediate. It's this stunning colony, like ocean views, terraces carved directly into basalt cliffs.
Sounds idyllic.
It does, but they are in the grip of a nightmare medical crisis. A highly contagious virus is spreading, and it's specifically targeting children.
Yeah, the local clinics are just completely overwhelmed.
And the absolute worst part is that the colony has a vaccine. They have it, but it simply isn't working.
Which is an immediate red flag.
Yeah.
I mean, in public health, when a trusted vaccine suddenly fails, your immediate assumption is always viral mutation.
Right. You think it evolved.
Exactly. You assume the pathogen changed its shape and evaded the immune system's memory. But when the Arawyn's chief science officer, Adrian Sorvak, analyzes the blood and water samples, he rules that out entirely.
I was reading Sorvak's chemical breakdown, and I was just like, wait, what? The virus hasn't mutated at all, not a single base pair.
No. Instead, he discovers the vaccine's stabilizing matrix is being compromised by a synthetic hydrophobic polymer.
Basically, an environmental contaminant right in the kids' bloodstreams.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. If you want to visualize what's happening, it's like putting a piece of tape over a keyhole.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. The key, which is the vaccine, is perfectly fine. It is exactly the right shape. But because this stray polymer fragment binds to the carrier proteins in the blood, it physically blocks the receptor activation sequence.
The key can't go in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The immune system never gets the signal to fight the virus.
So the vaccine is fundamentally muted. The cellular signaling cascade can't initiate because of a literal physical barricade.
And the Arawyn science and medical teams are suddenly looking at a massive two-pronged solution to this.
Right. They have to stop the bleeding, so to speak. First, they need to get this polymer out of the municipal water supply. And Sorvak proposes deploying cyclodextrin-based polymer filtration matrices in the main reservoir pumps.
Okay, let me stop you there, because when I saw the word cyclodextrin in the logs, my mind immediately went to, like, real-world commercial products.
Oh, like air fresheners.
Yes. We use cyclodextrin in things like household odor eliminators, right? It forms these microscopic, donut-shaped structures.
It is the exact same principle, just scaled way up for municipal water filtration. So cyclodextrin molecules have a hydrophilic exterior.
Meaning they love water.
Right, they love water, but they have a hydrophobic interior cavity that repels water, and these stray polymer fragments are also hydrophobic.
So they want to get away from the water.
Exactly. So when they tumble through the colony's water supply, they are naturally drawn right into the dry, hollow center of these cyclodextrin donuts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the cyclodextrin traps them, causing them to clump together into these larger clusters. And once they clump, standard physical municipal filters can finally catch them.
That is wild. Okay, so that handles the water moving forward, but it doesn't help the children who already have this plastic dust circulating in their veins.
No, it doesn't.
So to clear the blood, the medical logs detail the use of replicated liposomal scavenger nanoparticles.
Say that 3 times fast.
Right. It sounds like heavy sci-fi jargon, but the biology relies on a very natural mechanism, doesn't it?
It does. It relies heavily on the human liver's existing waste management system. So a liposome is essentially a tiny bubble of fat.
Okay.
And by engineering these liposomes to have a highly hydrophobic outer layer, they act like biological magnets for the polymer fragments currently in the bloodstream.
The plastic literally just sticks to the fat bubble.
You got it. They bind together into a larger complex. And the body's liver is already perfectly designed to filter out and break down complex lipids.
That is so elegant.
It really is. The liver recognizes the fat, pulls the entire cluster right out of the bloodstream, and just flushes the plastic out as standard biological waste.
Just a brilliant medical fix. Just incredible. But fixing the immediate symptom doesn't address the root cause at all.
Not even a little bit.
Which brings us to the big bridging question of this deep dive. How does a highly specific synthetic polymer dust end up in a colony's drinking water in the first place?
And to answer that, we have to go underground.
Yes. The logs shift focus to the Arawyn's chief engineering officer, Elias Harlan.
Oh, yeah.
And just to set the scene for you, Harlan is running on absolute fumes.
He is exhausted.
Totally. His team just spent a grueling week rebuilding the ship's tactical array. The logs say he's sleeping in his uniform, boots still on, when he gets this distress call from a local constable about severe infrastructure decay down below the city.
So Harlan beams down to access Tunnel Gamma 12. He takes two of his engineers, Mike Torres and Nathan Caldwell, and they meet with the local civil engineers to inspect the primary electrical conduits.
And what they find down there completely defies normal wear and tear.
Yeah, the insulation around these heavy power cables isn't just degrading, it's pitted. It's translucent. It is actively turning into a fine, powdery ash.
Disintegrating into its base molecular components. And my initial thought reading this was, well, someone obviously sold the colony a batch of cheap, defective cables 50 years ago.
That would be the logical assumption, yeah.
But Harlan's team figures out it's not a manufacturing defect at all. It is the planet itself.
Lathira IV has a highly fluctuating magnetic field, and that field constantly messes with high-energy transmission.
Okay, break that down for us, because this is where the physics get crazy.
Sure. So, by Faraday's law of induction, a changing magnetic field will create an electric current inside a conductor.
Okay.
So Lathira I's planetary magnetic field is constantly inducing these tiny erratic frequency wobbles right into the colony's power grid.
And to combat this, 50 years ago, the colonial engineers installed an automated load balancing system.
Right. To constantly correct those wobbles and keep the power steady.
But see, I find myself genuinely confused at this point in the logs, because standard power conduits are heavily shielded. Isn't the whole point of shielding to stop external interference?
It is, yeah. Shielding stops external electromagnetic interference from crossing the barrier. But it cannot stop the planetary magnetic field from inducing secondary currents inside the physical wire itself.
Because the wire is still moving through the magnetic field of the planet.
Exactly.
So the automated system is fighting an internal disruption. It's an automated feedback loop. And here's where it gets really interesting. Think of a car's lane assist feature.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Imagine your car drifts slightly left, so the lane assist jerks the wheel right, but it overcorrects, so it immediately jerks it left again.
Right.
Now imagine that system doing that back and forth so rapidly, thousands of times a minute, that the violent vibration literally shakes the car to pieces.
That captures the physics perfectly. Every time the automated system corrected the load variance, it created a low-frequency harmonic loop.
A literal physical vibration.
Yes. And the tragedy here is the math. This specific feedback loop resonated at the exact molecular resonant frequency of the conduit insulation.
We see this in real-world engineering all the time, like wind hitting the suspension bridge or a skyscraper at just the right speed to make the entire structure sway and eventually, collapse.
Because resonance is a destructive force. 50 years of this automated system fighting the planet created a constant low-level vibration. And that vibration literally shook the carbon-fluorine backbone of the polymer apart at the quantum level.
It's just wild. The system designed to save the grid is exactly what slowly pulverized it into nanoscale fluoropolymer dust.
But discovering a pile of dust in an electrical tunnel still doesn't explain how it gets into a pediatric hospital ward miles away.
Right. To figure that out, Captain Sabrina Corbin sends in Chief Tactical Officer Grayson McKinney.
Yes, she does.
And I have to admit, reading this, I actually paused. A water pipe is leaking, so the captain sends the guy in charge of photon torpedoes. Do they run out of plumbers?
I know, it seems entirely counterintuitive until you look at his methodology. Think about it. A civil engineer looks at a municipal water system and asks, where is the physical leak? But a tactical officer, he treats the subterranean waterworks like a stealth combat zone.
He really does.
McKinney isn't looking for a broken pipe. He is hunting for anomalies. He is looking for where the baseline normal is lying to him.
Right. He goes down to the municipal waterworks sublevel, and he doesn't even bring standard plumbing diagnostics. He configures his tricorder with a gravimetric overlay.
He's listening for microscopic shifts in water density.
It's so smart. And he places these tiny sensor nodes along the primary treatment junctions.
And the distribution manifolds. But the true breakthrough happens 2 levels down, right in the crossover alcoves.
Oh man, this detail was so seductive to read.
Right. This crossover alcove is an architectural choke point. The heavy power conduits run perfectly parallel to the main water lines. They are separated by barely a meter of solid rock and deck plating,
Which is super efficient for city planning.
but completely deadly for contamination.
Yeah, so McKinney places his sensor nodes in pairs, one on the water line, one on the power conduit. And he measures the acoustic environment between them.
And he finds a highly specific harmonic resonance, 47.2 hertz.
47.2.
At that frequency, the power conduits and the water pipes are functionally singing in unison. The vibration from the electrical grid is traveling right through the deck plates and shaking the water pipes.
And over decades, this constant invisible vibration created microfractures in the water mains.
Exactly.
And because that polymer dust is hydrophobic, like we talked about earlier, it doesn't want to bind with the moisture in the air of the electrical tunnel.
It wants to go anywhere else.
Right. So the moment those microfractures open up, the pressure differential and the chemical properties cause that fine ash to leach directly into the colony's drinking water.
The water and power systems are functionally poisoning each other through pure vibration.
It's mind-blowing. But that brings us to a terrifying wall in the logs, because once you discover the water is poisoned...
You can't just turn off the tap to fix the pipes.
No. The political and logistical reality of this crisis is just staggering. We see this play out when Captain Corbin meets with Governor Leora Cade and the colonial leadership.
And there's a really fascinating interpersonal detail tucked into this meeting.
Oh, the romance subplot. I loved this.
Yeah, one of the local leaders is Director Evan Calder, who runs the agricultural systems. And when he sees Captain Corbin walk in, there is this instant, shocked recognition.
And later, in a hallway, he pulls her aside and calls her June.
Right.
And it turns out June is a name only her family and closest friends use. They clearly have some sort of romantic history. The logs imply they had just spent a morning together at the local Tide Gardens days prior, and he was completely unaware she was a starship captain.
It's a great detail because it grounds the immense scale of the disaster in very real human stakes.
And makes it personal.
It does. And Calder is the one who outlines the true threat during the briefing. Kestrel Reach is a closed-loop ecosystem. The municipal water drives their hydroponic farms, their crop irrigation, their livestock reserves.
Everything. So if you shut down the grid to dig up the pipes, the colony starves.
Yeah.
And if you tell the public why you are digging up the pipes, the panic will spread vastly faster than the virus ever could.
It would be a complete psychological collapse of the colony's foundation. The Arawyn doesn't have months to manage a civil engineering project. They have days, maybe hours.
Before the clinical data goes public and mass panic ensues?
Right. They need to fix 50 years of infrastructure decay instantly without anyone noticing.
And the solution they come up with is just an absolute miracle. A masterpiece of brute force engineering.
It really is.
They take the massive cargo transporter system in Bay 3 and they completely rewrite its operating protocols to function as an industrial matter reclamator.
Which is incredibly dangerous. They're deliberately bypassing deeply embedded safety guardrails and pushing the transporter's pattern buffers to their absolute thermal limits.
Just picture the logistics of this. You have 200 Starfleet engineers beaming down into the maintenance tunnels. Their job is to manually tag the exact center of every exposed section of the affected conduit with a micro-pattern enhancer.
We are talking millimeters of tolerance across miles of tunnel.
It's insane. And once those enhancers are physically placed, the Arawyn's automated targeting program takes over from orbit.
The ship dematerializes the old decaying conduit, along with all the loose polymer powder, directly into the transporter buffer.
And simultaneously, the ship's replicator matrix swaps the molecular pattern to a new, non-resonant polymer insulation.
And then the transporter beams the brand new conduit back into the exact same coordinates.
Within millimeters. They are literally hot-swapping a planet's infrastructure from orbit.
Without cutting a single wire.
They don't shut off the power grid for even a millisecond.
It's amazing. And, reading that, It forces us to think about the hidden layers of infrastructure in our own cities.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the pipes, the fiber optic cables, the automated power grids. We rely entirely on systems built decades before we were born, assuming the math will just keep holding up.
We just trust it.
We live in a state of automation complacency, completely dependent on an invisible architecture beneath our feet.
And as we see on Kestrel Reach, when that architecture is under immense unseen pressure, it begins to fracture.
But that theme doesn't just apply to the planet's grid.
No, it doesn't. And this is where the logs get really intense. The stress of this crisis exposes deep fractures within the crew of the Arawyn itself.
Yeah, the subterranean decay of the colony perfectly mirrors the interpersonal decay happening in the engineering department.
We see this explored deeply through the logs of Junior Lieutenant Ryan Collingway. And Ryan's situation is incredibly frustrating to read.
It really is. He's an engineer who is already on thin ice with command.
Right, and while he is down on the planet, literally working in the tunnels to save the colony, this local constable approaches him and mocks him.
Because earlier in the week, Ryan was involved in a power outage incident at a local resort.
And he was publicly blamed for it. But thanks to Harlan's discovery, we now know that outage was actually the fault of this decaying 50-year-old grid.
So Ryan has absorbed the blame for a systemic failure. And he is carrying a profound amount of technical debt, both professionally and psychologically.
We get access to a medical counseling session he has with Dr. Chris Emerson, and the context she provides it changes everything.
It really does. Ryan is dealing with a highly manipulative, abusive father back home, a very powerful man.
A man who may have actively hired someone on the ship to sabotage Ryan's career in Starfleet.
Yeah, Ryan genuinely believes his environment is rigged against him. And the tragedy is he might be right. The system is actually failing him.
And Dr. Emerson offers some remarkable psychological insight here. She tells him that learning to process intense anger and paranoia doesn't always mean confronting the source.
Because confronting a powerful, litigious man like his father would only give his abuser exactly what he wants.
Getting Ryan tied up in court, reacting emotionally.
Exactly, and ultimately washing out of Starfleet. It is a lesson in surviving a toxic system.
Which is so relevant.
Emerson advises him to find a physical exit for the energy of his anger, like the holodeck or intense exercise, without giving his abuser the satisfaction of a direct conflict.
She basically identifies that Ryan's biggest threat isn't the sabotage itself. It's his internalized belief that his father is right, that Ryan is just a perpetual screw-up.
But Ryan's workplace is actively hostile, making that advice incredibly hard to follow.
Oh, it gets so bad. While working on a fried diagnostic terminal back on the ship, Ryan recovers a deleted message, an ominous, highly targeted message.
The recovered text reads, and I quote, "It's not nice to play with other people's computer systems, nor change hardware without notice. Don't think engineers are stupid. We understand the systems in ways you can't even imagine."
Ryan immediately suspects this message was written by the new systems analyst, Lieutenant Nathan Caldwell.
And Caldwell is brilliant, but he possesses a dangerous arrogance.
Ryan suspects Caldwell intentionally caused an EPS power coupling to overload just to destroy that specific terminal and hide the message.
Deliberately overloading a power coupling on a starship to cover your tracks is an astonishing breach of safety.
It's insane!
It's the equivalent of setting a fire in a submarine just to hide a stolen document.
So Ryan tracks Caldwell down in the tunnels of Lathira IV and confronts him.
And Caldwell doesn't deny a thing.
No. Instead, he drops this chilling, barely veiled threat. He tells Ryan that reading private correspondence is a breach of protocol. He says the message was an A-B conversation and tells Ryan he should see himself out of it.
And taking that a step further, Caldwell adds, "Or you can keep digging, but I promise you, whatever you think you found, it's not worth what happens when you keep looking."
It is a stunning display of menace masquerading as protocol.
It really is.
Ryan fires back, calling out Caldwell's arrogance, warning him that he's not nearly as clever as he thinks he is. And man, the tension in that tunnel is just palpable.
But it's more than just workplace drama. It fundamentally ties into what we were just talking about with the colony's infrastructure.
Precisely. Let's look at the macro level. Kestrel Reach looks like a perfectly functioning, idyllic society, but just beneath the surface, there are these hidden, toxic elements.
Resonant frequencies, the microfractures, the degrading polymer.
Quietly waiting to break everything apart. And now look at the micro level. The Arawyn's engineering department. On the surface, they are a hyper-competent team pulling off logistical miracles.
But beneath that surface, there's toxic arrogance, suspected sabotage, and hidden agendas creating microfractures in the crew's trust.
The human infrastructure is decaying at the exact same rate as the physical infrastructure.
It is a brilliant thematic parallel.
It really is. So let's trace this incredible chain of causality one more time.
Let's do it.
We started with the planet's invisible magnetic field. That field induced a subtle electrical current in a high-voltage power line. An automated load balancing system fought that current for 50 years.
Creating a resonant vibration that literally shook the wire's insulation into a nanoscale ash.
That ash leached through microfractures in the adjacent water mains fractures caused by the pipes humming at exactly 47.2 hertz.
The ash was swept up in the current, consumed by the public, entered the bloodstreams of the colony's children.
And perfectly blocked the receptor activation sequence of a vital pediatric vaccine, from a planetary magnetic field down to a blocked cellular receptor.
It is a staggering demonstration of how connected our systems are.
The mission logs filed this entire event under the title Silent Inheritance.
And that is the ultimate reality of any advanced civilization. We inherit the solutions of the past. I mean, the automated load balancer was likely hailed as a brilliant engineering triumph 50 years ago.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
But the solutions of the past inevitably become the invisible crises of our present.
We inherit the bridges, the power grids, the underground pipes, and the millions of lines of code written by people who are long gone. We blindly trust the architecture.
We do.
Which leaves you with a final lingering question to mull over long after we sign off today. If the very automated systems designed to stabilize and protect a society's infrastructure can inadvertently shake it apart over decades.
What invisible feedback loops are currently running in the background of your own life, quietly waiting to reach their resonant frequency?
It forces you to look at the world around you a little differently, doesn't it?
It really does.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We loved unpacking this one with you. Remember, the next time someone points to a clean, simple medical diagnosis or an easy engineering fix.
Just be glad you aren't looking at the murky waters of 50-year-old municipal plumbing.
Exactly. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.